And happy Sunday and happy New Year, everyone. I am Jonathan McNamara with JMU Sound Off. We are back after a 2-week break to recap everything that was the magical run that the Dukes saw in 2025. We're going to look at all the highs and lows from the season. And then we're going to talk about our college football playoff recap experience, as well as address some myths that were out there in the national media. Then we're going to have a conversation about the Billy Napier era, which has officially started now as players are actively being recruited for the 2026 roster. Then we're going to check in with both our men's and women's basketball teams, a jammed packed episode. So thanks for spending some time with us on Sunday. As always, we're going to thank our sponsors first from Skyline Financial Partners. Remember that you can empower your family for lasting financial success at SkylineFinancialPartners.com. Champions Drive Bourbon. Remember that every bottle of Champions Drive that is purchased helps to support our pursuit of championships. You can find a bottle near you at abc.virginia.gov. Our friends from Where's Woody, remember that you can get 25% off your order at where'swoody.com by entering promo code SOUNDOFF25 for 48 hours after every episode. Shout out to Purple Nation, now with stores in Northern Virginia, the west end of Richmond, Midlothian, and the coast. Shoker Associates, they impact personal and civic institutional productivity for success through their public philanthropic efforts. The Dead Meat Society, you can join the movement for grilling enthusiasts at deadmeatsociety.com. You can also check them out in Midlothian, in the west end of Richmond at the Painted Tree. They now have a store where you can get your hands on some of their great tools. Outdoor Kitchen Creations, take your outdoor kitchen to the next level by visiting backyardtrends.com. And then our friends from Valley Road Vineyards, stop by the next time you're on I-64 between Harrisonburg and Richmond. Tell them you say hello from JMU Sound Off, that you heard about the winery. You're going to get 50% off your wine flight. And remember to consider them for all of your destinations. ValleyRoadWines.com, the best way where you can learn more about how they can work with you. And now we're going to bring on our Sound Off team to recap everything that was 2025. Afton Sadamond, Taylor Atkins, and Michael Evangelista. Guys, first of all, Happy New Year. I know we've all enjoyed a couple of weeks off. Now we're all following Twitter probably more than we'd like to, seeing who's coming and going from Harrisonburg. But we're going to start off tonight's episode by kind of looking back at the magical season that was. Taylor, I'm going to go to you. I have so many things that I know I want to cite when I think of this season, but I'm curious where your mind is at now that we've had a couple of weeks to reflect on the incredible run that was this magical season from JMU football.
Well, the first thing I have to point out is one of my new Christmas gifts that's right behind me, right there. If you're listening, you're not watching. It's the CFP, JMU CFP football, part of my new background. I do have a question. I was trying to find that CFP football with a UVA or Virginia Tech logo. They didn't have them, so I wanted to get one for my friends, but I guess they're on back order, so we'll have to see about that. Yeah, this season, it was great. It was weird because, in the beginning of the season, we're coming off being a 7th place Sun Belt team. We went 4-0 out of conference last year, then 4-4 in conference. And so, but you knew that Coach Chesney was a great coach. You knew he had to rebuild next year. So there still was a lot of uncertainty. And then you also had Alonzo coming back from injury. How was he going to perform? That anxiety and awkward feeling that we had the first couple of games when it's like, are we going to do a 2-quarterback system all year? What's going to happen there? And, we ended September with a lot of question marks. I mean, I think there was parts of the fan base that said, yeah, I see this team winning 11 or 12 games. And there was the other extreme of the fan base that was questioning, will we finish with a winning record? And I think, I look back to a lot of our podcasts we did early in the season. There was a lot of trying to convince the JMU fan base to, glass is half full. There's still a lot of football to be played, a lot of reason to be optimistic. And I just go back to the Kurt Signetti season where we went 11-1. There were a lot of close wins in that season that you just didn't have this year. A lot of blowouts this year. And even the Washington State game, that was really one of the only games this year where in the fourth quarter, you did not know if JMU was going to win. And I think the JMU fan base was not put in that position very much this year. So looking back, the games were great. The season was great. And I, we always talk about the human element, watching the games with my boys, my family, my friends. My son started playing flag football this year. So this was the first year that he really kind of understood the game. And I'm just glad that this is kind of the first season that's going to be etched in his memory for a long time.
Awesome. Afton.
Yeah, I just thought it was great experience after great experience. I mean, even the lowest of the lows of the season, our only loss at Louisville, it's still a great experience. They had a great tailgating scene, fun experience, great crowd. And then you just go at home, you play App State, ODU, Washington State. The crowds were electric. It was some of the best atmospheres we've ever had. And even the road trips too, when we go to Marshall and we went to Oregon. I mean, that's the experiences week in and week out this season were unmatched, unlike the other seasons. And like Taylor was saying, this year was utter domination. 2 years ago, the experiences were great. Games were great. We had a great team. We only lost one regular season game, and that's awesome. But this year, like Taylor was saying, there was no chance that we're losing in the fourth quarter for almost all of our games. And it was awesome because you see, even when we're up 40 against App State, 30 against ODU, the students are staying. Every fan is staying. It was electric. It was just a great season. I hope we do the same thing next year with Coach Napier, and he's going to see what this program's like, what this fan base is like, and we're going to keep it up.
Afton, I do want to come to you really quickly, though, to get you to just to have your moment in the sun a little bit. This was your first year with JMU Sound Off, and every week you created some absolutely incredible hype videos. Just now that you're looking back on, do you have a favorite video, and what was it like to see the response, not only from JMU Nation, but from really the broader college football landscape that really embraced your content and said, hey, this kid's got some talent for a literal kid, 16. Pretty impressive.
What? First of all, I just thought it was super fun to do it. Like, a lot of people think they're really good, think it's a lot of work, but it's a fun thing to do. I thank all the narrators for wanting to do it. Like, my favorite was the Q Reed one, but the people's favorite, it seems like, was the one with Jalen Green for the Oregon game. That seems like the people's favorite. Like, when I ask my family, they all say the Oregon one, the Jalen Green jump around, but I think it's the Q Reed one for App State. And I like getting players that like symbolize who we're playing. Q Reed, the hit. App State. So I got him for App State. So I thought it was just a fun experience. It was cool to see the players do it. It was cool to see, like, when we're at tailgates, that some of the players want to do it. You know, like, they'll come up to me and be like, can I narrate a video? It's cool stuff. And there's one more coming. There's one more.
Little Easter egg. Stay tuned.
Yeah, that's right.
Michael.
Just echoing what Taylor and Afton said, what a magical year to end in the college football playoffs. But you know how I like to do it. I like to take a step back and kind of look at this holistically. What a ride for JMU and JMU football fans since moving up to FBS. Imagine you're a student and you started your freshman year in 2022, beating Middle Tennessee State 44-7 in our first FBS game. 2023, beating Virginia after 40 years of not playing with us. Bringing in Jordan McLeod after Alonzo Barnett had an interesting start versus Bucknell, and us having College Game Day and almost hosting or almost going to a New Year's Six Bowl. And then you've got 2024, where, John, you and I had those crazy conversations when Cignetti moved to Indiana, and what are we going to do next? Who's our head coach? Bringing in 63 new players. Moving from the NIL era to rev share. What the heck does that even mean, right? And then 2024 happens. We put 70 points on UNC. We get our first bowl game versus Western Kentucky. And then this year, like, what a ride to go. I mean, it was a revenge season overall, putting 58 points on App State, beating Old Dominion 63-27. After you talked about some of these scores, Texas State 52-20, capping it off in the regular season with our annual beatdown of Coastal Carolina 59-10. And we didn't even talk about it. We won our first Sun Belt championship, beating Troy 31-14 when it was 15 degrees or 20 degrees at Bridgeforth in front of a ridiculous crowd on an amazing Friday night. And obviously being able to go out west to Oregon, like, what an experience. And just think of where we were when we were going to Fargo, North Dakota in 2021 with Cole Johnson and Antoine Wells and KT, to now, being on a national spotlight and seeing JMU all over ESPN, all over ABC. Even with the Indiana guys doing what they're doing, it's just been commercial after commercial for JMU, and it's just been an awesome ride. And I can't believe we're only going into our 5th year and wrapping up year 4.
And for me, when I look back at this season, I have to go back to the national championship loss to North Dakota State in Frisco. And I've had this conversation with Chandler and a few other people. It was at that moment, I really questioned if we were going to see meaningful football again at JMU. I knew there were going to be bowl games, and there was so many questions. Are we going to move up and win 5 games? And could it take 5 to 10 years for us to become relevant again? And what does relevant even look like? So to be able to fast forward to the moments that we all experienced this season, not only just the outcomes on the field, but the the road trips for me personally to Georgia State. The game was a little bit obviously not the greatest on the field, but everything that happened around it. Michael going out with you and Wei for some Chinese food afterwards was fun, and just the trip with Eric Pitzer and Zach Price to Texas State. Like, those are the things that I tend to reflect on and just say, man, those are the stories you're going to tell for years. But to go through the season and then to see that the college football playoff was a possibility, and to see the national conversation start again, to see the group chats again, which this podcast came from, start to fire up. And Eric Pitzer's like, hey, can I come on to kind of chalkboard my scenario for what it's going to take for us to get there, and to see those dominoes start to fall. And then when we're all sitting there celebrating our first ever Sun Belt Conference championship, and then had to wait to the next day to see what happens with our friends from UVA. We need them to have a certain outcome, and then to jump on a live conversation and just to be a raw explosion of emotion, but then to still not know if we really were going to get there, and then just to see a cascading sea of people's Instagram posts, their social media explosion that came around JMU of just what this meant. And then for me, the weeks after that of just getting to enjoy so many different conversations with people who 20 years ago never thought this was possible was just incredibly special. So I'll think to those things, but I'll also say that this was the year I think our fan base really grew up. We put to bed so many narratives that for many years were just baked into JMU football. The students are going to show up. They're not going to be loud at Parents Weekend. And it just feels now the foundation is set for such increased growth into the future that it's pretty spectacular. But then my final thought on the season is this is the year we've been really blessed as a podcast to have great support from the JMU universe. But that support really went to a whole nother level this year, whether it was our sponsors, whether it's people like Georgia and Don Anderson, who make it a pilgrimage to our tailgate spot every year. We had Taylor did the trading cards this year, which brought an ability for us to interact with so many people who have told us that they enjoy the product that we put out. So those are the things that I'm going to think back on in the years to come. Of this was a season that I think will grow to appreciate even more over time. And that's the type of thing that you just have to take advantage of anytime you get the opportunity to tell those stories. I'll never forget Taylor's son with the helicopter and the shirts off, and just so many amazing moments. And I hope that all of us, including this platform, don't just move right off this. I think there's going to be more opportunities as we go throughout the offseason to continue to celebrate this season, continue to celebrate the storylines that made it special. And I know we're going to do that. But to go now to you, Taylor, I want your kind of thoughts just in general on the college football playoff experience, because obviously there were some amazing things that came out of the trip, but there's a whole other side to it as well with the national conversation of the relevance of JMU football. Did we belong there? And I know you have some things you definitely want to address, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So my college football experience, there were some things that I think were exceeded expectations. There were a couple things, nothing was a letdown about this trip, but there were some things that I was kind of surprised about. So I'll start with the good. I don't think people appreciate what the JMU administration was able to pull off in under 2 weeks. This wasn't about finding an alumni spot in Raleigh or Atlanta or somewhere on the East Coast that there was some familiarity with. No one has been to Portland. No one has been to Oregon. It's just not a place where the JMU alumni base exists. It's not a place that JMU travels really for anything. And with under 2 weeks, between the athletic department, the alumni association, all the parties in the administration, they put together those get-togethers on the night before the game. Then we had the big, massive tailgate right outside the stadium, which I thought was fantastic. The MRDs came and played. And, this isn't like you're some Alabama or Michigan or Ohio State, and it's just like, all right, we pull out the template for what we've done the last 10, 20 years. Everything they did was first class, and I was really impressed with that. And I just know there were a lot of people working some late hours coming up against the holidays that they probably weren't expecting. So kudos to everyone in the JMU administration for what they put on for the fans out there. As for the college football playoff, it's really cool to be in the college football playoff, and I've heard some of even the head coaches talk about this. there isn't a lot of the pageantry and the fan experiences that kind of come with some of the bowls, which are multi-day things. The players are out having fun, doing some fun things. It's all business. And I'm not saying I would have rather been in a bowl, but there is some aspect of that this is kind of just like another game added to the season, without a lot of the fanfare that you get a lot of the bowls. And also, I am not putting down the Oregon fan base at all. First of all, their in-game experience, their stadium. If you did not make this game and you're someone that wants to put a college football stadium and college game day on your bucket list, Oregon is definitely a place to do that. And we did venture outside the JMU alumni fan experience and kind of see some of their tailgating. Their tailgating was not bad, but I think what you experienced and what you saw, it gives you an appreciation for the game day atmosphere that JMU fans put on in their tailgating scene and everything around Bridgeforth. And at times it just lacked a little bit of energy. Maybe it's because it's really spread out. Could have been a lot of reasons, but I just walked away just having even more of an appreciation for the game day atmosphere that we have in Harrisonburg in our tailgate scene before the game. But yeah, I thought it was a great experience top to bottom, and let's run it back next year.
Optim.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything Taylor said, but I will say the tailgating scene, you're right. It wasn't as good as even I expected, especially with what we see week in and week out at Bridgeforth Stadium. But their fans as a whole were the nicest people. They were super nice people. They were super inclusive. They wanted us to be there. They were thanking us for coming to Eugene. They were thanking us for all of us for coming to Eugene, saying that we brought more people than anybody they've seen, us in Indiana, which is kind of funny because, all the players. But I thought it was cool how much the Oregon fan base they respected JMU a lot. They respected our fans for traveling. They respected our team for making it. And all the players and coaches that were in the playoffs, like Dante Moore for Oregon and Dan Lanning for Oregon, after the game, they were like, this team deserved to be in it. Like, this team deserved to be the 12 seed and play us, because they did play us better than almost every team all year, which I thought was a cool sign of respect from Oregon, their quarterback, their coach. They didn't have to say that. They can say whatever they want. They could say nothing about it. They could say we didn't deserve to make it. They went out of their way to say we deserved to make it, which I thought was cool. And Taylor was talking about kind of the format and everything. I think it's awesome that we made it. But personally, I don't think, as a Group of 5 fan, 2 Group of 5 shouldn't make it. But that's not our fault. That's not our fault. That's not the format's fault. That's the ACC tiebreaker. They could have put Miami in the ACC championship, but tiebreaker rules put Duke in, right? So that's not us. But there should be a Group of 5. And all the people that say, well, it's not competitive, blah, blah, blah. Did you watch this week's games? Like, they were all blowouts, and I loved it because it was Oregon blew out Texas Tech. They beat Texas Tech by more than we lost to Oregon by, right? We put up double the yards. We put up 34 more points than them, and you watch Indiana just boat race Bama, which is awesome to see. And you see the Oregon Ole Miss game was super close, right? But even the Miami Ohio State game, it was an upset. It was a big upset. But Ohio State really didn't play well at all. And that's supposed to be they're the former national champions. They won last year. They just came off a national champion win. And no one's going to say they don't deserve to make it next year, even though they lost to an ACC team by 10. And really, they never led that game. They never really played well at all. They didn't play to any sort of standard, just like Alabama and just like Texas Tech. They played to no sort of standard. But we're going to sit here next year, and the same people, whether we're in the conversation or not, are going to say, well, this team deserves to make it. Texas Tech should be in, even though they lost 23-0, right? So I'd say just put more respect on our name, because we did give up 51 points. We also scored 34. We also put up more than 500 yards. And for all the people that said that we had the backups in, blah, 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 we still had, 280 yards in the first half. That's more than we had in the second half. Whether we put up more points in the second half, we did put up more points. And also, it wasn't against the backups. That's a fact. On our last touchdown, there were 4 all Big Ten conference defensive players on the field. That's the last actual play of the game. So that's all I got to say. And the experience was unbelievable for Oregon. I mean, the scenery was awesome. The crowd was awesome. Autzen Stadium was incredible. The drone show was awesome. Everything they did was top tier. And in our little sound off bus that we had, John was saying we should be taking notes for what was happening in that stadium. We should take notes, kind of take it for our own, because they did almost everything right, in my opinion.
I'm going to get to that in a second, but their DJ was on point, like with the playing the "You're Not Like Us" or turn the TV off. Insane. I took a ton of notes for that. But Michael, your Portland experience, I don't think anybody enjoyed the Pacific Northwest experience more than you did. I feel like you saw everything there is to see. Special stuff.
Well, just like every other away game, I try to make it an experience outside of just the game. If you think about when we played Utah State a couple years ago, or our trips out to Louisville, we tried to see all the stuff around it. But this was my first time on the Pacific Northwest. And so, of course, my wife and I found our way out. Shout out to Way, by the way, who hung out with us for all 3 days. We flew in on Wednesday, so we had a couple days available. And then we also befriended two sisters on the plane, Elizabeth and Sarah Fabian, who are big time JMU fans, who are also on that bus caravan that we took to the game. They were phenomenal. They just drove around with us for a couple days. So we went out to Multnomah Falls, Horsetail Falls. We went all the way out to Chapin Point on the coast. We got to see some of that Haystack Rock, which if anyone watched the Goonies, you'll notice very well. I do regret not bringing Taylor. I think he overslept all day on Friday, so he never.
No, not overslept. Michael doesn't have a good cell service because he gets the bargain phone, so that's what it was.
But it was an awesome time, and like those are check the box experiences that we now have. And to go to the game, like Afton had mentioned, right? For us to, if we're playing the comparison game, having more offensive yards and points in the first quarter than Texas Tech did all in their first half versus Oregon, to then us putting 500 yards of offense and 34 points in Autzen. If you had told me a year ago that, hey, by the way, you're going to put 500 yards and 34 points against Oregon in the postseason, but I'm not going to tell you the outcome. I'm not going to tell you what for. I would have taken that, 10 out of 10 times, right? Just thinking about where this team came from. But I will say this, the Oregon fans were very nice. But maybe it's that East Coast city boy in me, almost too nice, like uncomfortably nice, like to the point where I was like, can you guys stop talking to me? Everyone was saying, we're so glad you're here. Thanks for making the trip. And to the point where I'm like, are y'all being like, you guys like
I had my theory on this, and it was the same way that if I had encountered Weber State fans at Harrisonburg, everyone would have been super nice because it's like, we don't really think you're a threat. And
that's what all the University of Washington fans and like the other Pac-12 school fans who we met around Portland were like, just wait until they think you're a threat.
It's the Oregon. It got a little nastier online after we put up 34 points on Oregon, because now it was no longer little old JMU. But I agree that the fans were great for whatever the reason was.
The fans we interacted with, right? Like we had some folks on the podcast, which was awesome. They've been great. They definitely did their research on JMU and respected us. But being in the game and meeting some of the fans just on and off, like, thanks for being here. And I was like, I get it. It's the Pacific Northwest. Everyone's super nice and lovey-dovey and all that stuff. But I was like, maybe it's that East Coast in me. I was just like, I'm ready for some smack talk. You know what I mean? Like, tell me I'm not supposed to be here, all that stuff. But Autzen was really cool. I think back to when we went to Louisville for the first time and some of the really cool ideas that we came out of that. I imagine some of those notes will be making it to some of the media teams at JMU from some of the great things that they did at Autzen. Really cool experience. 54,000 people sounded like 100. Let's be honest. The way
54,000 people ever.
It's crazy. The way that they have created the atmosphere, and obviously this is Phil Knight and his amazing bank account talking, but they have made it to where all of that, all of the loud, the cheers, all that audio just stays on the field, and you really feel it. And it's almost comparable to even just being in Fargo, right? Just being in that atmosphere. So that was really cool. It was good for us to see. But yeah, to your point of like, for this team to travel the farthest west they've ever been, to all the logistical things, to do it during a coaching transition, and to do it with a level of class where I guarantee agents were talking, all of this stuff, all these different distractions. And also we're playing Dan Lanning's Oregon. For us to do what we did, I'm super proud to be a JMU fan.
Well, I'll start mine just by agreeing with everything that was already said about the stadium. That was a bucket list stadium for me. And it exceeded my expectations, which were incredibly high going into it. But when I think about this trip, for me, again, to broaden it out into the broader JMU fan experience, the fact that we traveled as well as we did during the holiday season with the investment it took to get out there, that is something where our fan base deserves an incredible amount of credit, because you had to put a lot of money in to be able to get out there. And it wasn't just the fans who made the trip. It was the fans who, if they couldn't make it out there, I think we saw more viewing parties than maybe we've ever seen before. People made a concerted effort to watch the game with other JMU fans. That's worthy of praise. But for me, I will think back to getting there, the singing, doing Go Dukes in the airport in Denver. Us recording a video at the Richmond airport, which was super fun. Just being able to walk through a busy international airport and see hundreds of JMU people all saying Go Dukes, having the fans from other schools cheering us on. That's the type of thing that makes a playoff run special and unique. And that's something that for me was just spectacular. As you said, Michael, the Pacific Northwest delivered in a massive way from a scenery and the hiking experience. Getting to go to Multnomah Falls which I still not entirely sure either of us are saying that right. Apparently, if you say it wrong, the people in Oregon say we all have funny accents out east. But that was an incredible experience. The restaurants, bars, everything delivered in every aspect of the way. But again, to also see JMU just at the forefront of that national media conversation and to do what we did in the second half, I do think matters and will matter in the long term. And I don't want to get into that yet because that's kind of my final thought for what I think comes next from this experience. But just to echo Taylor's points, bravo to every staffer at JMU who did incredible work during a transition and to make these events possible, because it's not easy, especially during a time of year when everybody's really, let's be honest, just trying to wind down and enjoy the holidays with their families. And then my final thing to the players of this team, your champions for life, the ones who were here, the ones who are going on to their next destination. And the same applies to the coaching staff. There was questions going into the game if their attention was divided. I think you saw the best from everyone who had a JMU logo on their chest or the helmet in terms of the effort they put forward. And that's something that, again, I think we'll celebrate in the short term and probably appreciate even more as we move into the future, because that's just remarkable what was able to be demonstrated on the national stage to show the universe, again, that this program does belong despite what some people in the cartel are trying to say. But Taylor, I know you have some kind of myths you wanted to address in terms of just the experience and what the conversation has been both before and after.
Yeah, a lot of this. So I have four myths versus facts that I wanted to kind of go over that have all been talking points around the college football playoffs, JMU's inclusion, the G5, and kind of everything going forward. And a lot of this is not going to be new to us on this podcast. It's not going to be new to a lot of our listeners. But as we continue to grow the fan base, you're getting more and more of that JMU fan that has not followed the football program since 2004, and you're getting a lot more regional interest. And so these talking points do matter, that when they do come up, that you can kind of address them with people, because there is still a lot of people that are still needing to buy into JMU. And if we're going to expand the stadium and do all this stuff, we're going to need to continue to grow the fan base to the point where you have 30, 40,000 people that are buy into this program and it'll make the trip an investment to come out to Harrisonburg 6 or 7 times every fall. And so I wanted to address these points because JMU's name has continued to grow on the internet. Matter of fact, do yourselves a favor, go on Google Trends and type in JMU. You can map out the last month, last 60 days, 90 days, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And if you do that, we might post that on some of our socials lately, but the previous highest peak of JMU was our third College Game Day appearance, which was, obviously our second year in FBS, Kurt Signetti. There's a lot more on the line those previous two. Go look at the peak for this college football playoff appearance. It dwarfs that and just shows how much this means to the brand. So we'll probably post that on our socials later. But so 4 myths. Number 1, the first myth I keep hearing is, well, they had to include schools like JMU. They had to include schools like JMU. The biggest thing, this is not that's hard to debunk. The biggest thing is they did not have to include a second G5. JMU was in and was only in because they had 5 conference champions. We were better than the ACC conference champion. We were better than the team that beat UVA. We were better than the team that led the conference of Virginia Tech. And so I think it's really special that the way we got in was not on some technicality like they have to let us in. Here's this thing. We got in because we were better than not just a P4 conference champion, but an ACC conference champion who defeated, the flagship school of Virginia. And I think that's very important that JMU earned their way in. We've brought up a couple of points that Afton was already talking about it. Miami would not be in the playoffs this year if it was the 2026 rules. Even though they were ahead of Notre Dame and they beat Notre Dame, they would not be in the college football playoffs because of this new rule where Notre Dame gets in as long as they're in the top 12. So this is more and more of those teams at the top not wanting to earn their way in or not letting to have a chance of another team earn their way in, and people want it given to them. So everything JMU earned was earned to them to get in this college football playoff. So that's number one. Number two, the playoffs should be the 12 best teams. We've heard this talking point a lot. It's just not a talking point that exists anywhere else in sports. And I think, I think we were talking pre-show, the NFL playoffs, I don't know if it's Carolina or Tampa Bay. One of them is going to get into the NFL playoffs with a losing record because they won their division. I'm not a soccer guy, so John or someone might correct me on this, but I believe there's 48 teams, right, that go to the World Cup every year. There's tons of teams that go to the World Cup, that qualify for the World Cup, that have zero shot of making it to the title game, championship, whatever they call the top the soccer bowl. I don't know. I do know that there are 48 teams, and then the low hanging fruit obviously is the 68 teams in the NCAA basketball tournament, which, mind you, there's an ongoing conversation to expand the playoff from 68 teams to I think 96 or something absurd like that. So I would respect the whole 12 best teams argument if you could parallel it with any other sport in any division in any other part of the country in any league, and you just don't see it. And it's simply a talking point that's new because a second G5 program earned their way into the playoffs. And if we start talking about 12 best teams, this is no longer a playoff, it's an invitational. And if you're going to do an invitational, you should have 136 teams outside of conferences. Everyone make their own schedule, do whatever you want, and at the end, a committee picks who they think the best teams are. But mind you, the committee that has picked the 4 best teams last year and the 4 best teams this year, those teams are 1-7 in the college football playoffs. So this committee choosing teams, that ain't it. I know I've said points 1 and 2. I can hold off on 3 or 4.
No, go. You're rolling.
You got it.
Number 3. This is probably the one that's getting to me the most. JMU's always going to lose coaches and players. we're this G5 team, but we're a really good G5 team, and we're just always going to lose coaches and players. And they say it as if it's unique to JMU. Now, look, the system right now is broken. Everyone from the top ADs and coaches at the P4 to the bottom of FBS to FCS, there is not one person that says the system as it exists today, should stay the same and be fine. There is not one person. So everyone knows that there's change. And John, I think, is going to talk about this a little later, maybe. There are changes that I don't see. I'm about to use a double negative. I don't see them not happening in the future. We don't know what they are. I think there's infinite paths it takes, but I just don't see it staying the same. However, this whole thing that JMU's always losing coaches, JMU's always losing players. Last year, there were 27 coaching vacancies in 2024. This year, there are 31 or 32? 31 coaching vacancies across college football. You're talking about almost a quarter of college football places. And this is not just in the G5. This is P5. This is P4. The average coaching tenure right now for an FBS coach is under 4 years. The only stat that I could find was 3.8 years, but that's a 2022 stat. I can only imagine that we've seen this continue to grow. I believe that coaching tenure number is down a lot. And also, right now, JMU, I believe, how many players do we have in the portal? Roughly 22, 23, I think is what I last saw, 25, 20, 25, 25, 25.
27 players.
27. You have Oklahoma State with over 45. You have Iowa State with over 44. West Virginia with 29. Auburn with 27. FSU with 26. Colorado 25. Florida 25. I could go on and on and on because those numbers are actually outdated, I think, a week or two at this point, too. So I think those numbers have gone up. My point is, yes, there are a lot of players in the portal for JMU. This is largely because we are going through a coaching transition. I don't think you're going to continue to see that number every year when you have a sustained coach. But the other thing is the incentive right now is to go in the portal because why not, right? I mean I don't blame the players. The incentive right now in the system, the broken system, is for players to kind of go out there and tease their value. Now, I don't think it's the smartest decision every time. I think there's something to be said about players that develop. There's a tweet that I put out a couple weeks ago about how when it listed our 4 impact players for the college football playoffs, it was 4 guys that had spent 4 years at JMU. So I think that player development, I think that's something we're losing. You've also heard scouts say players are coming into the NFL not as prepared, and they haven't seen that development that they were seeing historically in college. So all that to be said, yes, we've had coaching turnover because we've been good. We've had our last 4 coaches hired away. We've seen players go into the portal because we've been good, but this is not unique to JMU. And why I think that's so important to stress to JMU fans is because if you think it's unique to JMU, you're going to get down about the team. You're not going to be as excited as investing into this program, investing into the donations, investing into the NIL, buying season tickets, coming out to games. So just know it is not unique to JMU. Continue to invest, and there are changes coming down the road. We just kind of got to bridge that gap in the meantime, and we've done a pretty darn good job about it these last few years. And then my last one that I think we've kind of already talked about a little bit was actually Afton did a really good job covering this, was the whole, clearly JMU's offensive performance. It's one of the top in the college football playoff, 34 points, 509 yards. It's this whole thing of like, well, those weren't real yards. Those weren't real points. You guys are celebrating moral victories. It was Oregon's backups that were in. The backups weren't in. I mean, this isn't even something that's, a subjective opinion. Just go look back at the tape. Dante Moore was in the game the entire time. I think either Afton or Michael mentioned that all of their all-conference defensive players were in on that last drive. Sure, they were rotating in a lot of guys, but those 34 points, that 509 yards, that was put up against a team that did not want to be embarrassed in their own place and giving up those yards late. I mean, we've all talked. The Old Dominion game this year, the App State game this year. How many times were we on the edge of our seats being like, I don't care that we're up by 40. I do not want them to score again. If we have that kind of passion and drive, what do you think the players and coaches, do you think they want to give up 20, 30 points because they just don't care because they're resting guys for the next week? That's just a flat out lie that you can go and watch the game film and see who is on the field for those times. So those are my 4 myths versus facts. I've seen those kind of swirling on the internet debates, and I just think it's really important for JMU fans to know the myth versus fact as you continue to preach apologetics for JMU football.
And Taylor, who else was substituting players during that game? JMU did, right?
Yes.
We had backups too. We were switching our lines out here and there to rest some of our guys. It goes both ways. So I don't want to hear it. I think there's some stats out there that show and prove that they were playing their starters. And for the nuts out there, 44 was in the game. 10 was in the game. 52 on the defensive line, who we could not block to save our lives, was in the game the entire time. 31, that safety, that was just all over the place, was flying out all over the place, even in the fourth quarter. So to your point, I love that you brought it up because we see it all the time. It's really easy to be lazy and go, oh, the backups were in. I even heard in the grocery store down the street, and I even had to say something about it. But at the same time, it's like for us to do that, and again, 500 yards, 34 points is 34 points. And Barnett probably had one of his greatest games, if you really look at it from soup to nuts. And also, we had no turnovers. I think they committed 3, if I did it correctly. 2.
Dante Moore, who's supposed to be the top QB, we had 2 picks against him. Our secondary put 2. I mean, there were some. I believe the offensive production that we put up, I saw this somewhere. I haven't confirmed it, but it was the highest yardage put up in Autzen Stadium in over a decade. I mean,
these are things. Christian McCaffrey in 2016.
Yes. I mean, so, and again, this goes to show this, there's so, and this is why I'm preaching this so much, is because there is so much attached to the brand. It could be a 12-1 JMU team and a 2-10 Clemson team or Florida State. And there would still be people that would go, but come on, you're not going to, it's FSU. That's another level of football. And what you've seen, and part of the NIL and the transfer portal has allowed this to happen. There's so much more parity. And, the difference between a wide receiver that's playing for the best team in the Big Ten and a wide receiver that's at Richmond or William & Mary in the FCS is usually like 0.2 of a second on their 40 time. I mean, that's how close the divide is.
You saw it, right? You saw it versus Oregon when they were going deep. It's like, versus Justin. That's the difference between a corner that runs a 4.51 and a future first round pick that runs a high 4.3. Or
and even those catches that they were having. I mean, there was that one-handed grab that Trent Hedrick. I mean, it's not like they were just burning us by 20 yards. And what I never at any point saw that there were two levels of athlete out there. This was not when they play. I think they played Portland State
So you're
earlier
saying
this
it wasn't a
year.
safety issue? It wasn't
It wasn't a safety issue. This triple A, and I think what I'm really disappointed in is there are so many talking heads in the sports media world that I've always kind of looked at as like, this guy's fairly objective. This guy kind of cuts it down the middle. And even some of the best ones have kind of gone with this line, because at the end of the day, there is an incentive out there for all these big TV contracts that are poured into those top 4 conferences. There is no incentive or any reason to build up a team that is not in one of the conferences that your media company is paying millions and millions of dollars to put on TV for advertisers. There's no reason why they would want to build up a JMU, a Tulane, a North Texas, a South Florida. But again, we earned it. We proved that we were there. And again, I would challenge anyone to state an objective fact that shows otherwise outside of opinion, largely based on brands.
There you go.
And to the point too, I think what was really disappointing is obviously Nick Saban, probably the greatest coach of all time, calling us a AAA program when he himself played at a Kent State. He came from Kent State. I think he also coached there. And I'm just like, for someone that obviously we all love JMU, but we also love college football, where we've seen the rises of, our rivals in App State. We've seen the Boise State arrival. Hell, the Cincinnati's, the UCFs, which I think, Taylor, you could check me. Weren't we in the same conference as UCF like 25 years ago in the Yankee? Or was that South Florida?
I don't know if we were in the same conference, but we did have them on our schedule. I mean,
exactly.
as early as early 2000s, yeah.
We were at some level the same. And even, and I know I kind of clowned the Oregon fans a little bit for being really nice, but they told us they felt like they were at JMU 20, 25 years ago, before the jerseys, before the Phil Knights, right? They were kind of that oddball university up there in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
And then obviously they became the brand. They became the Oregon, the Nike school that we know today.
Well, even before Houston and UCF, and I think even Cincinnati got their big bump in their budget due to these TV contracts moving up to the Big 12. I remember I used to work at UTSA, by the way. When I was at UTSA, and people down there were like, JMU is a kind of a small school. When I was at UTSA, JMU's budget was bigger than Houston and Central Florida. And I would point that out to people because they were familiar with Houston and Central Florida. So when it comes to how we resource our programs, the facilities that we have, the type of athletic program JMU is, not only did we earn our spot that day, but there are a lot of programs that are not doing what JMU is across their entire athletic program, and we're not doing it with some $30 or $40 million TV contract. I think we've talked about the ROI on this JMU football program. I mean, it's lights out when you see what we paid versus what other teams paid. I think someone posted a thing about Texas Tech and their NIL budget versus us. Yet we're at the same position, and we did not lose or have as embarrassing a game as Texas Tech did against Oregon. And I'll end it with this: is in the AP polls. Which is funny that they keep saying, well, the AP poll doesn't matter. Well, it's funny because when the college football playoff rankings come out, they talk about who you beat that was ranked. So clearly they matter until they don't matter. But, you had a 5-19 game, Oregon versus JMU. And if at any point in the season I said, hey, the home team who is number 5 is playing the 19th team in the country, take names out of it. And I said, yeah, and it was a good game. Both teams had over 500 yards of offense, and the number 5 team beat number 19 by 17 points. That wouldn't be a blowout or a slaughter or a mud stomping or anything like that. It just that sounds like the outcome that you would expect. And again, I thought, I think ESPN said our chances were like 11% to win the game. Okay, you say that we can beat the number 5 team in the country 1 or 2 out of 10 times in our 4th year of FBS. I don't think that's a bad thing for the JMU program. I think when you strip the brand and the names off of the stats and the score and the performance, it's a very respectable and expected outcome that we had for this game.
Afton, I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so one thing I'll say about this playoff thing that annoys me the most is actually nothing that anybody says, right? Because the people that are SEC fans, they're not going to like us. People that are Big Ten fans, they're not going to like us, right? If we put up 500 yards in Oregon, they're not going to like us. But one thing that annoys me the most is, let's say UVA did beat Duke, right? We wouldn't have been in. And all season, I'm saying Tulane's not a very good playoff team at all. And they proved it. They lost by 31 after losing by 35 to the exact same team, right? But we wouldn't have been in. It would have been Tulane, right? So not only like Taylor was saying their top 4 seeds are 1-7 now, right? So not only are they getting the top 4 seeds wrong, they got the group of 5 wrong. They gave Tulane the 11, and they're giving them $8 million and us $4 million because they got the 11 seed, right? Because they would have been the 4 last year, so they get double the money, right? But they got the group of 5 wrong. So let's say UVA did win. I know they didn't, but let's say UVA did win. We wouldn't have made it. We would have been playing in a bowl game, right? Which is awesome, like Taylor said. These great bowl games, they're fun, right? It's a great experience. But we wouldn't have been in, and Tulane would have, and they would have lost by even more to Oregon, right, than what we did. I guarantee that. We proved that we're better than Tulane. So, like, if they want to just crap on the group of 5 and put them at a disadvantage like they already are, putting them on the road at number 5 in the country, they should make a play. In my opinion, this is what I do. Cancel the conference championships, right? In my opinion, the best 4, the committee can choose the best 4 group of 5s. In my opinion, it was Tulane, us, North Texas, and ODU, right? So put us versus an American school and ODU versus one of the American schools, right? In the conference championship weekend. The winner of that plays the next week. Everybody's off except for Army, Navy, and that game right there. The winner's in. The winner is the group of 5 they represent for the group of 5, and they want the group of 5 at an advantage, at disadvantage. So that disadvantage is you have to play another game. You have to play an extra game. You don't get a bye week like everybody else does. Like we got 14 days off to play Oregon, right? We only get 7, and it chooses the best group of 5. Because what annoys me the most is we wouldn't have made it, and they would have gotten it wrong, just like how they clearly got 3 of the 4 top 4 wrong. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mentioned the Notre Dame rule they're changing for next year. The other thing they're changing for next year is all the P4 champions are going to get in. So, if the same group of teams was next year, you wouldn't have Miami in. You'd have Duke over JMU, and they're purposely, again, the TV is putting these games on. The TV is what's incentivizing and investing in all this. They're going to put on what they've put their money into. And as many other people have talked about, one of the only reasons they're continuing to even allow the G5 to have a seat at the table at all is some of these antitrust lawsuits. But I think there are so many at this point. The NCAA has just said, and this is my opinion, the NCAA is just like, we're just not going to do anything until certain legislatures get involved. I hate that it's coming to that, but I have zero idea what direction this all goes. But this is the only thing that I say to the James. So let's end on a happy note. Stay invested, stay involved. JMU is continuing to overcome every hurdle put in its place, and the system that exists today, it will not only will it not be here forever, I just don't see it being here in the next 2 or 3 years. Something's going to change, and we have leadership like Matt Roan and President Jim in a position. They're evaluating every possible scenario out there. We're going to be in a good place. Stay with us, and until then, we got Billy Napier and his team and his staff that's going to take this team to new heights, just like Signetti, just like Chesney, just like Houston and everyone else before them.
Really quick. I just want to add one more thing on what I think comes next for this, though, because I do think it's important. Is there is a school of thought. I don't want to say they're wrong, but it's like ignore the haters. Ignore the media, people that are out there saying you don't exist or you don't belong, or you go play your own college football playoff, and we'll support it. We'll invest in it, and it'll be great. I do think it's interesting that we're now starting to see athletic directors in the last couple of weeks from the group of 5 find their voice, and not only find their voice in terms of advocating for their schools, openly saying we need to see the group of 5 fan bases make their voices be heard, because it does kind of feel now that, yes, this weekend's games and the outcomes help our cause because of the blowouts, but you've already seen some shifting of the goal posts and some changing of the narrative for why we still shouldn't be included. So I do think, to Taylor's point about remain invested, remain loud online about your passion that you have for this program, remain loud in your in vocalizing why the group of 5 programs are just as important to the full picture of college football as these blue blood brands, because this fight is not over. It's far from it. And I do think there is a legitimate school of thought that we are fighting for our existence and our right to compete. And I think that's where, if I've seen something that's positive, is you're starting to see group of 5 fan bases, whereas maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, we're all bickering. Now they're coming together because there's an understanding that we're all fighting the same cause. We can get back to bickering about who's on top and who's below and rivalries and stuff in the weeks to come. But at least for the offseason, we have to collectively come together to advocate for our existence, because there are very powerful forces with a lot of money behind them they're going to do everything in their capacity to eliminate that option. So that's my kind of final thought on that. And I know we're going to come back to Taylor and Afton for a little bit of a look at our men's and women's basketball teams in just a few minutes. But Michael and I are going to have a really quick conversation about the start of the Billy Napier era. Michael, we were both at the press conference for Coach Napier when he has been introduced. A lot has happened since then. And I have a feeling there's a lot of people watch this show who probably, especially during the holidays, have not been as glued to platforms like X as we were in terms of what has happened in terms of the development of a coaching staff. And then obviously a lot of changes in terms of the portal. I was hoping you might be able to give us a little bit of an update.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think just to kind of put a bow on the last conversation, TV contracts all go up for negotiation in 2029. So if you don't think the Matt Roans, the Billy Napiers, the people in the leadership, right, are thinking about how do we make sure JMU's on the right side of that conversation when it comes, whether it's, I talked about a new look Pac-12, maybe it's the American, maybe it's a new look ACC, you name it. The goal is still to win. When you win games, you set yourselves up for opportunities like a college football playoff, because at the end of the day, the reason Notre Dame's not in, the reason all these other schools are not in, because they lost key games they should have won, and we didn't. And we had that opportunity. So I just want to make sure everyone hears that. I know that our fan base, the people that listen to the show, understand that, but I think that's super important that if we do not go 12-1, right? If we did not win those games by 48 point spreads or whatever, we do not put ourselves in that type of conversation. So I'll leave it at that. I'll say this, as a fan base, the quicker we realize this is a coaching change and that it is a regime change, and there's a lot of names out there that we've gotten to know over the years, that we've seen on the hype videos, that we've seen on JMU Sports, it's all going to look different. But the good news is we hire winners and we have an expectation at JMU. And I really like what Coach Napier has done. Obviously, he had a very, interesting time at Florida, and he's brought in some of his guys with him. But seeing some of the backgrounds for these players or for these coaches is really cool. I look at like our new offensive coordinator, which, by the way, he said in the press conference, he's going to have an offensive coordinator. He's going to let him call plays. Cam Aiken, coming from Eastern Tennessee State, don't let that fool you. He had a top 25 offense in the FCS, but he was also he also had 2 national championship appearances with Dabo Sweeney on the Clemson staff as a key offensive staff member. So you're talking about someone that runs a really balanced offense, and we'll talk a little bit about the portal that he's looking at, but really loves sort of dual threat quarterbacks. He's got 2 former Power 5 quarterbacks at ETSU right now, and also he's helping Ole Miss and their offense, as obviously their prior coach has since gone to LSU. So he's still kind of coaching, right? And he still kind of has his flair. And I think you're going to see a really good looking offense going in next year. Might not be as nuanced as Coach Chesney's, but certainly an RPO offensive attack is going to be what we're going to be looking at. Also, I think what's really good too is that we hired an actual quarterbacks coach, and we haven't had one since Tino Sinceri under Coach Signetti, and we saw what he was able to do with a Cole Johnson, with a Ben DiNucci. I think his last name is Aaron Plufgard from Michigan State. He was at NAU for 9 years as a quarterbacks coach, wide receivers coach, and an offensive coordinator. And now I think he was the passing game coordinator at Michigan State. Brings a wealth of experience. If you look up any of his offenses, he knows how to sling the ball around. He knows how to run the RPO game. So I thought that was a really interesting hire. And then also, too, offensive line. Rob Saleh comes from Florida with Coach Napier, was previously with the New York Giants, similar to Coach Chris Smith before he came back to follow Chesney at JMU. Was also at Louisiana a couple of years ago as well. Coached up the number 1 center in the country. He had multiple All-Americans, has NFL experience, like I said. Loves big, long offensive linemen. So I think you're seeing some key positions here, right? The quarterback room is going to be up to snuff. The offensive line room, I think, is going to be really good to watch. And then defensively, you're really seeing a different type of form. So I think when people think of JMU defenses, the 4-2-5s, quick, twitchy defensive linemen, which I think we'll see some of that. But Robert Bala, who comes in from Florida, but was previously at Alabama and then Washington, he's going to bring sort of like a 3-4 flair. And I think when I was doing some research, Napier runs a similar defensive scheme as Oregon. And if you watch that game, Oregon's got 3 big sort of gap stuffers up front, and they have number 10 and number 44 at the edges. Those are the guys, they're like outside linebackers / defensive ends that honestly give a lot of the pressure, right? They're the ones that get all the sacks. They're the ones that get all the tackles. And the 3 defensive linemen are essentially taking up space. And I think we'll see a difference in kind with some of the players that we want. We saw it earlier today when we got the kid from West Florida, the defensive lineman, 6'1", 285, big, thick kid. And we've got a couple of other targets. But I think a key hire for us is not just Robert Bala, but Collie James, defensive line coach from Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky runs a 3-3-5 that we've seen the Villanovas run before. ODU runs a variant of it. So he knows how to mix and match some of these defensive linemen in sort of a 3-man front look, which I think is really exciting. And I think he was also one of the top 35, under 35 coaches out there. So he's an up and coming coach, what I'm really excited about. And then also we retained Coach Plungus. Yeah. And if you think about it, right, I think of how huge that is. He's going to be our outside linebacker coach, assistant head coach. He coached up Trent Hendrick, which, whoever thought he was going to be the defensive player of the year for the Sun Belt. And he brings in a wealth of experience. He ran a similar defense at Robert Morris. And as you think, some of the linebackers I'm going to bring in here, bringing back Gannon Weathersby, seeing some of these guys go downhill and bringing that continuity is going to be really great for us. And then lastly, probably the most important hire is our director of strength and conditioning. We saw what Coach Groutsy was able to do coming from Holy Cross, bringing all of that sports science. We bring in Sean Lockwood from Michigan, who was there from 2018 to last year. So he was part of the 2023 National Championship team, when you think about it. He also brings in Everett Hume, who's his director of sports science. So we're still going to have some of that flair. It's probably going to look different. We're going to be using the catapults. We're going to be testing everything. It's probably going to be very similar to what Coach Chesley has done. But I think that was a really key hire and someone that has dealt with that caliber of athlete before and knows how to maximize those folks. So I know I'm going on and on here a bit, but I think for us fans, seeing the staff that Coach Napier has brought in not only brings an experience from maybe lower levels that are making their way up, but also from the SEC, from the NFL that have really coached up some really high quality players. I think it's an exciting staff that should be one of the top, if not the top staff in the Sun Belt again.
I did want to ask because as we've kind of joked around a little bit last night after the basketball game, there's been so much conversation about the portal and who's going and who's coming. Are you noticing any themes in the type of player we're going after? I know we've talked offline that measurables seem to be very important to this staff in terms of maybe a different look to what a type of player that's going to be coming to Harrisonburg is. I know before the portal opened, you were saying you really wanted to see the continuing trend of bringing players who are on their ascension, guys in FCS, guys who have played Division II. Are we seeing that trend continue in the types of guys who are at least getting offers from JMU?
I think that's what I see, right? Like, we always say this idea of production over potential, bringing guys that had high level of responsibility at their last place, was asked to make key plays, key stops, key catches, you name it. And I think we're still following that mold. So when I look at some of the folks they've offered over 44 prospects. And some of these guys range from Mercer in the SoCon to Presbyterian to UNC to some of the Power Four. So we're really going around. But what I love is that, particularly on the line of scrimmage, Coach Napier and the staff are going after folks that are big-time producers at their last stop. So I look at like Ezra Christensen, 6'2", 280 out of New Mexico State, one of the highest rated defensive linemen in the portal. Even looking at this, I look at a guy like Danny Royster, who started his career out in Ball State, is now at the University of Indianapolis, 6'3", 235, one of the best pass rushers in his division, all the way to the offensive line, right? I see these guys like Frankie Tinilau from ETSU, was formerly at Miami, found his way to ETSU as their starting left tackle, 6'6", 325, has really brings some of that experience. That's the type of players that we're targeting, which is exactly what we need, right? Like if you look at it, the 2022 roster, the 2023 roster, those were glorified FCS all-star teams, right? Like those players were literally recruited to become FCS players, and they've done well at the FBS stage. I will say this, the body types are different. When I look at the offensive line, everyone we've offered has been taller than 6'4". We've got 6'6", 325. Lucas Simmons, who's from Florida State, 6'8", 310. So you're looking at bigger bodies. And also the defensive line. Like I mentioned earlier, these guys are look and feel a little bit different, but 6'4", 315 out of Wisdom Sims from North Carolina Central. Jerickis Brown, 6'2", 290. These are big gap pluggers in the middle, but we want taller, lanky guys in the edges. So I look at an underrated guy from Emory and Henry, Mason Perham. But by the way, who's Emory and Henry's head coach? Former JMU wide receiver Quinn Hunter. He's 6'6", 250. He fits sort of that hybrid defensive end outside linebacker that we see out of a 3-4 Robert Balla sort of scheme. I think he fits in nicely. Also, I look at all these other guys, right? The linebackers, everyone he's targeted, it's like 220 and above. So you're looking at bigger bodies. And then similar to Coach Chesney, it seems that Napier likes big corners. When I look at like Terrence Jones, we just offered out of Fordham, 6'1", 195. Damier Minka from Shepherd, Division II, 6'2", 290, who I believe is visiting JMU as we speak. Isaiah Green from Portland State, 6'1", 180. Looking at bigger DBs, bigger corners, bigger safeties, different type of bodies, right? Even the wide receiver room. We saw some of our guys go in the portal. Everyone that we're targeting is at least 6'1", 6'2", or above. So you're seeing sort of a difference here in the type of guys that Napier wants, which obviously is to fit his scheme and what he wants to see out of that position.
Well, and then my final point, and if you want to comment on this, feel free to, is that there's also now an opportunity for some guys who are on this roster to step up and make their mark. We did see George Pettaway is coming back to anchor our backfield for next season. There are guys like Smoke Collins and others who will now have their opportunity to make their mark on this roster. Is there anybody in particular that you have your eye on that this could all change by the time this airs, but on the current roster that you look forward to take a next step in their development?
Yeah. I mean, to add to that point, right? Like even the guys that are in the portal today, the Justin Eaglins, even the DJ Barksdales, who knew their name 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Right. Like Eaglin got beat out. He literally was recruited over this past offseason and found his way to become an all conference player. But yeah, I think Mikey Scott, like another year under his belt, right? Can he be an explosive player out of the slot? I think so. Smoke Collins, good size, right? 6'2", 185. Coming out of Division II program in Tusculum, having another year right at JMU where he can develop. He had some key catches for us last year. Can he be the guy? I look at some of the folks on the offensive line, right? It's looking at our backup center. I don't have the roster in front of me at the time. But our backup center last year, oh my gosh, I forgot his name. I feel terrible about this, but he had some really good snaps for us last year. And can he fill in at a guard or can he fill in one of those positions? I think some of our tackles that have been here for the last couple of years, people don't remember or probably don't realize Joseph Simmons, who right now I think is over in Auburn visiting them. He only started last year and he's been at JMU for 4 years. And now he's a bigger name in the portal. You look at the Riley Robels, all those guys that are in here. I think we've got some guys up front that could really be contributors, but then also in the safety room, right? Seeing guys like KJ Flowback, Chase Regan, who's been they're glue guys, right? Culture guys within the organization that are big time players. I think we've got a lot of talent in the back end. You're going to see a lot of names that we haven't seen before. I'm sure as we go into spring ball and such, you'll see them. I think of like Deacon Rawls, who was from the 757. I mean, talk about size. This kid came in at like 6'5", 340. He's trimmed down to like 310. Remember, Pat McMurtry did not finish the game versus Oregon, but you would have not noticed. And I think a guy like him that has developed over the last 3 years, that has gotten his body right, that has the athleticism, those are guys that you're going to see bigger names and see them make big contributions for next year.
Yeah, and my final point on this is what I like to see is that a lot of the guys that we're offering, you're also seeing the top of the G5 involved in also offering. And where I think we're going to come out on top in a lot of this is now you're going to see the JMU brand become a very important part of those discussions, is the success we've had, the attention we've had. If it's a close battle between these programs, I think that is going to be an area where we're going to have an opportunity to really win some of these battles. And then we're in a much better place now from a revenue share perspective than we were a year ago. I think due to the hard work of this fan base, the hard work of our administration, has put us in position to be able to compete financially as well with those blue bloods at the top of the G5. So it's, as we've heard from a few other people now, less competing against maybe some of those Sun Belt schools we thought we'd be competing with. Now we're going toe to toe with some of the top programs in the American for this talent, the top programs in the Mountain West. And that's going to be important going forward, because that is a piece of this discussion that can't be ignored as we all continue to grapple with this new era of college football and the financial realities. Any last thoughts, Michael, before we transition to our basketball discussion?
I think, to echo kind of what Signetti said a couple of years ago, nothing surprises him anymore about JMU. Nothing surprises me. I think what's going to surprise his fan base is the caliber of player that we could bring in here. And to your point, I think Matt Rohn mentioned it in the article a couple of weeks back. We're not really competing against the Sun Belt anymore. We're competing with the Tulanes, the South Floridas, who took out a $20 million internal loan to field a roster, right? That's who we're competing with. And if you think about it, when we had a lot of talk about the college football playoffs and the G5 spot, there's probably only 4 or 5 programs in the country, particularly in the G5, that can compete for that spot. And there's no doubt that JMU is one of them. So I think, to your point, being in the right position now in the rev share, being in the right position now in the NIL, being 4 years into FBS, where we've had time and we've had to force ourselves to kind of figure it out because we've been in the spotlight all 4 years. We're only in a better position. And so, to your point, when it comes down to a star quarterback or an offensive lineman that's got the Sun Belt offers, the American offers, JMU will stand out. And I think we have an opportunity and we have the advantage of having the cream of the crop right at that level. Certainly, will some of our guys move on? I think one of our players is visiting Colorado and Rutgers as we speak. Absolutely, but that's the nature of the game. That is the system that is there right now. But will we reload? And we're going to find guys that 12 months from now, we're going to go, oh my gosh, how do we get that guy? Or where did he come from? Or has he always been here? Particularly a quarterback. We've got a lot of we have a lot of offers out, some really athletic folks. I have no doubt that we're going to have that same sort of surprise, and we'll field a really solid team next year.
Well, and my point on that is, remember when we got a little-known quarterback who was kind of tossed on the scrap heap of college football named Todd Centeio a few years ago? Don't just look at where the kid's coming from. There can be some surprises in this process as well. And that's where you have to really hang your hat on the pedigree of JMU football and the success that we've had. But lots to talk about. Great for podcasts like us. And we'll have no doubt many, many more discussions about this roster formulation as we move over the days and weeks to come. And with that, Michael, we'll see you in a few more minutes. We're going to bring on Taylor and Afton for a quick look at our men's and women's basketball teams, which have started off 2026 with some big wins in conference. Gentlemen, take it away.
All right. So, it's weird the way the football season, when you're doing so well at football and at the end of the year, everything is focused on football. Men's basketball and women's basketball season starts in early November. And, I was going to go over, there's been some ugly, there's been some bad, but there is a lot of reason to be optimistic. And I probably wasn't even as optimistic until I ran down some of these stats and was looking at some stuff today. And we have some big games coming up for both the men's and women's programs. So let's start off with the bad on the men's basketball side. Probably the worst thing about the men's basketball program right now is not even so much the men's basketball program. It's that the Sun Belt Conference net is 20 out of 31. I don't know if that's the lowest it's been since we've been in the Sun Belt, but it's pretty darn close if it is. So out of 31 conferences, the Sun Belt is 20th. And, it's one of those things where I have a lot of opinions on why I think that might be. I think a lot of other programs in the Sun Belt that don't have the budget that we have put a lot of money towards football or maybe not invest into their basketball programs as much. But right now, we're not going to get any help with our net with some of these Sun Belt wins. The other thing is, we have a weak strength of schedule that kind of goes along with that. I think we're 253 as of today out of 356. I think that's how many D1 teams there are. We had some bad early losses to LIU, to Longwood. Longwood is 2-time defending Big South champs, but the Big South is another conference that's down there with the Sun Belt. And then the loss to Old Dominion broke a 9-game winning streak that we had against them, but we do have some revenge coming up. And right now, some question marks on our defense. We're 10th in the conference on defense, 9th in the conference at 3-point defense. So there's the bad. And I think that's a lot of what people have been dwelling on, especially some of those early losses. But here's the good. And a lot of the good started with what happened last night with the win at Arkansas State on the road against the preseason favorite. and a team that won. Well, I'm sorry, that we were the preseason favorite.
we
This
were.
was the team that won the won the season last year, and we did it on the road, and I thought that was very impressive. And then going back and looking at our other two Sun Belt losses, one, the Old Dominion game, I don't have much of an excuse for that, but the Georgia Southern overtime loss. Georgia Southern's currently in first place in the Sun Belt, and the good news about both of those games, they're in the East, so we get 2 shots at them. So I'm going to get into some player stuff, but before that, after some of your thoughts on the good and the bad of like kind of the overview of basketball to this point.
So I'm going to start with the bad, just like you, and I agree but I'm not going to say the same thing as you. So I'm going to go with offensive rebounding. We gave up in our losses. Offensive rebounding is a huge issue, which surprises me because we went out. We have a true center. He's not super tall, but Gabe Newhoff is a true center. But other than Gabe Newhoff, our rotation players are very lengthy and big forwards. So you would think that is a recipe for a great rebounding team, but for some reason, it's not. I don't know why, but we're not very good at we're not very good at defensive rebounding. Like, we let up offensive rebounds all the time. Yesterday, that killed us. But one thing that helps us a lot, the good in this, is our hustle. We saw it in the first exhibition game at Richmond. The hustle is off the charts, right? But then the bad comes with the hustle, right? Injuries. We have 2 guards out right now. We had Ike Cornish yesterday make his first appearance after an injury, right? But the good from the hustle is that sometimes will help with rebounding, right? Like, you can actually finally get some rebounds. But I'd say some of the good, it's not statistically true, but when you watch the team, it is true. We are a very good 3-point shooting team. The problem is we ride and die on the 3-point shooting. That's where the issue comes in. But when you watch yesterday's game, we did not ride and die on the 3-point game. First half, you had Gabe Newhoff dominate the paint. 14 points. I think he was 7 of 8 in the first half, maybe 7 of 9. Super efficient. So we weren't only just chucking up threes, but a lot of games, that's where we find our issues, right? We go on the 5-minute droughts.
Yeah, I mean, that thing where I think it was around the 9-20 minute mark in the second half, we had that 5-point lead. We gave it up. The momentum was all with Arkansas State. And to see this team continue to fight, this is not even the referee situation. Both coaches were about to lose their mind. I mean, there was one point, I'll say this, I went to the gym right when that latter half of the second half, and I saw there was 9 minutes left. And I was like, well, I'll just do a quick warm up on the treadmill before I go and lift. I was on the treadmill for 40 minutes because that 9 minutes took 40 minutes with all the delays and all the stuff going on. But for that team to stay focused and stay in the game and come back and win in that environment, I thought was very impressive. You mentioned the 3-point shooting. We are second in the conference in 3-point shooting. Would like for us to not have to live and die by that as much, but it is good. We do have some sharpshooters, and we have some guys out, like you said. For those that haven't really been paying to the basketball program yet, there are a lot of new faces. Justin McBride is probably the star right now on the team. He leads the team with 17.2 points per game. Former 4-star recruit that played at Oklahoma State and Nevada. Am I correct on that, Afton?
Yeah, that's right.
But we also have Bradley Douglas, who was at Georgia Southern last year. He's second on the team with 14 points, and Cliff Davis, who's a UT Rio Grande Valley transfer with 13 points a game. The big thing that's coming up for the men's basketball team this week, students are not in, which means we need people at the AUBC. We have Marshall coming to town Wednesday night, and we have a big revenge game Saturday against Old Dominion. Again, Old Dominion broke that 9-game winning streak that we had against them. We've got to get those 2 games back. Marshall is a very good team. I believe Marshall right now, they're 2-1 in conference. So they have an opportunity to push themselves to the top. We have an opportunity to get a big win over an East team that we need to have to finish this season strong. And again, yes, the strength of schedule is bad. Yes, the conference is not really that strong, but it all comes down to positioning yourself for the postseason tournament at the end of the year in Pensacola, because as we talked about last year, where you are in the standings gives you how many buys that you have, and we have a chance to go to the tournament, to make the dance. So let's not write this team off yet. Afton, do you have any more thoughts before we move on to women's basketball?
Yeah, I'll say a little bit on the tournament. Just like you were saying, the seeding is a big thing, right? To position yourself to win the tournament, you almost have to be a top 4 seed, right? You can't. If you're a top 4 seed, you start on Friday, so you have 3 games to win the conference: Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you're a top 2 seed, you only have to win 2 games. But then that's kind of like the football playoff thing. It's like you have so much of a layoff. like us last year, we were a top 2 seed, right? The top 1 and 2 seed lost in their first games, so much rest. So you got to be a top 4 seed, which is why I'd say the biggest 2 games of the season are exactly what you said. We have another chance at ODU and another chance at Georgia Southern. Yep. And they are both at home. Georgia Southern's second to last game of the season. I think ODU's this Saturday. So we need to win both of those, right? And I think those are the 2 biggest games of the season because those can get you right back up in the top 4 when tiebreakers from it.
Yeah, and these are programs that we're familiar with. They're regional. It's people that we want to see. So get out to the Atlanta Union Bank Center this week. Again, Wednesday night against Marshall, Saturday against Old Dominion. Now, on the women's side, everyone talks about how consistent football has been over the last 2 decades. The women's basketball program has continued to compete at the highest level year in, year out. They're a program where if they don't make the NCAA, it's considered a disappointment, where there are tons of programs out there that don't sniff the NCAA tournament in an entire decade. So, really not a lot of bad with this team. The only thing I would say is that there's kind of a 5 or 6 team race right now for first place. You got Arkansas State, Marshall, Georgia State, Georgia Southern with JMU. JMU had a loss to Marshall back on December 20th, I believe. And so, but the JMU women's program, Peyton McDaniel's an all-time Duke. I mean, she's on pace right now to have one of her best years here as a JMU Duke, and that's saying a lot considering every year that she's been here has been an all-star performance. Right now, she's put up 18 points a game. She's 43.5% from the field, 36% from behind the arc. And unlike the Sun Belt in the men's side, the Sun Belt Conference on the women's side is a 7th ranked conference in net scoring in the country. So JMU will continue to have the opportunity to improve its net ranking as it goes. Is an at-large chance there? I mean, they'd really have to start kind of winning out from here on out, but being in the 7th ranked conference gives you an opportunity to have a lot better seeding, even if you win the conference coming out of postseason play. And I'll end with this before I go into Afton. I envy the women's basketball schedule so much with the teams they get on there. I mean, just this year, the teams that they've had on their schedule, they had at home, they had George Mason, they had Liberty, they had Villanova, they had Virginia Tech, they had Notre Dame. Then they get to go on the road and play Texas and Boston College and Wisconsin and East Carolina and VCU. I mean, folks, the teams that this women's basketball team is playing, not just in conference, again, a 7th ranked conference in the country, but out of conference, is some of the best teams and programs and brands among college athletics. So again, if you're not getting out to see women's basketball, you're really missing out. Let me give a quick shout out to a couple of their games coming up. They are away next week, away at Georgia Southern, who again's in 3rd place. So that's a big win that they need to get to stay in the competition for first. They play Georgia State on the road next Saturday, but then they do come home. They come home next Thursday. I'm sorry, not next Thursday, but Thursday the 15th against Marshall. Again, this is a Marshall team they already lost to. It's their one conference loss that they have. So really get out for that. And then they return home on Saturday, January 17th against Georgia Southern, who they're also playing this week. So back-to-back those 2 games. But these East games are so important because you get 2 shots. If you can get a 2-0 lead against them, that puts you in a great position for the postseason. Afton, do you have anything for the women's basketball program?
Yeah, so I'd say same thing, highs and lows. The lows are like a lot like the men. I feel like it's a lot of droughts, right? That puts you in a big disadvantage. But just like you said, how do you get out of those droughts? You play in games, like you said. You play against Tech. You beat Tech. You beat Boston College. You beat Wisconsin, right? And you play Texas. You play Notre Dame. So when you get into those droughts in conference play, you know how to get out of them because you've played against the best of the best. And I'd say the highs are the defense. The defense is insane. I mean, just yesterday, I think we won by 35 points against Texas State, I believe. It's incredible. And the defense, we held them to 52 points. Yeah, we won by 35, held them to 52 points, right? Game before, held them to 64. That's 2 games in a row that we hold a team under 65 points. We held a team under 55 points yesterday. I mean, it's crazy. So I'd say the defense is just a super high value on this team, especially with Bree Robinson at guard, and then you have a freshman Grace McDonough at center. That's huge because even with this whole portal situation goes for all sports, if we can keep her, that could be a 4-year starting center, which is crazy because it's one of the best women's basketball teams in mid-majors, right? And I think they do run the offense that Coach O wants them to super, super well, which I think on the men's side, we do the same thing. But on the men's side, we take a little bit long to get into the offense, but I think the women's do really well. The women get into the offense really quick. They do it before 20 seconds is left on the shot clock. The men, they waste their time a little bit, and a lot of times they end up having to shoot a bad shot from it, if you've noticed that. But I think the women do that really well. They get into the offense really quick, and they're really efficient in when they do it. And I think their defense just tops it all off. Defense is incredible.
All right. Well, I think we're going to start to wrap things up. We've gone long because we had a lot to cover because we had a few weeks here. But I'm going to kick it back to John so we can go around the horn for our final thoughts.
Nicely done, gentlemen. And you, Taylor, you're getting out to AUBC with Afton, Wednesday?
I will be there Wednesday and Saturday this week.
I'll be there
Come
Saturday.
find us. Come say hello.
Nicely done.
Come show off your college football playoff merch. That's what I'll be wearing. I got so buy happy, and I bought so much stuff that's going to take me months to wear it all, but I'll have it.
Awesome. All right, Taylor, your final thoughts.
I'll give a final thought. Afton kind of touched on this a little bit, his kind of idea for postseason. One crazy thing, our bowls becoming irrelevant, that becomes louder and louder every year. But I saw a stat the other day that the bowl viewership was like at all-time highs. I mean, I'm talking even like the smaller bowls, New Mexico, Boca Raton, and all that stuff. Still 3 or 4 million people watching some of these smaller bowls. So I don't know if they're becoming irrelevant. Clearly, they're still profitable for the TV execs. I do have an idea that I wonder if this would ever work, and I haven't thought this through enough to see if it's a valid idea. But what if we moved all the bowls to an invitational? It's the first game of the year. So they extend out, it's out of conference games, and you extend these out of conference invites. We already have a preseason Duke's Mayo Classic, Chick-fil-A Classic. So you've already seen some of these bowls extend to these neutral site fields. Maybe go ahead and keep the bowls in that capacity, and then maybe look at shortening the season from 12 to 11 games. The question becomes, do we even have a conference championship anymore? I love, as a fan, the conference championship, but I can see as a conference commissioner, you're saying, well, you're going to take 2 of our best teams and you're going to guarantee 1 a loss. And so I can see where that becomes problematic. We saw that, like I said, a couple of years ago when Auburn and Georgia had to play in the conference championship. Alabama stayed home. Auburn lost. Auburn didn't go to the playoffs. Alabama did. And there's some other scenarios like that, like Miami this year. Miami didn't have to play in the ACC championship and didn't have to risk another loss. So I don't know what we do with the conference championships. And then even though some of the talking heads that have been bashing JMU, they have been making some good points that at this point, those first round buys, those teams are 1-7. I don't know if it's entirely because they're not the better team. It's because they haven't been playing football for almost a month at that point. It just hit me today that the national championship is going to be played on January 19th. I mean, at that point, we're almost talking about basketball postseason before football even ends. So something has to change. And I'm just going to leave on this note. I said this earlier. Stick with JMU. We are in a better position than literally almost every G5 program and probably bottom third to bottom half of the P4 programs out there. Stick with JMU. We're going to get through all this just like everyone else is. And in a few years, whatever happens, I have no doubt that we are going to be in a very optimal position playing against peer institutions that we care about in a relevant nature that will continue the success and the brand that JMU has put together as a national brand throughout the entire country.
Afton.
Yeah, I just say get out to the AUBC, right? Show that we're not just a football school. We don't just make the playoffs in one sport, right? And from the football aspect of things, I think we're just going to continue to climb. I don't see why we wouldn't. We just hired a great coach. He has a great staff coming in. He's going to bring in great players. We'll see if it's next year. We'll see if it's the year after. But this is not a one and done. This isn't a one season wonder. Like, we will be back near the playoffs or in the playoffs. We will be back. Our name's not just going to disappear some crazy way. Just like how Michael said before we got online, like, you don't wake up, forget how to coach. You don't wake up, forget how to play football, right? That's just not how it works. Like, you don't wake up and all of a sudden JMU is just irrelevant. It's not going to happen. We're going to stay relevant. We're going to become more relevant. We're going to be right back here next year, 12 months from now, saying we did the exact same thing. Just like Michael or I think Taylor was saying earlier, he was like, I feel like Groundhog Day, right? We're saying the same thing as we did last year, and we're going to do the same thing next year.
Michael.
To echo Afton, why not us, right? Why not JMU? People thought that, we would celebrate when we win 6 games over the last 4 years because we're moved up to big boy FBS football, that we wouldn't be able to compete in the Sun Belt, blah, 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 you name it. Look where we are. So I think continue the ascend, right? I'm really excited to see what Coach Napier's got in store. I'm really excited. Before you know it, guys, spring ball will be here and we'll see a brand new team out there on the field. And who's going to be QB1? Who's going to be handing the ball off to Petaway, right? Who's the guy on defense that we need to watch? I will say this for our listeners, a couple of key dates for us to think about. I didn't talk about this earlier, but there is only one transfer portal in 2026. So January 2nd to the 16th is a 14-day window. And what that really means is this. That's for players to be able to go and enter the portal to find a new home. That does not mean that we can only sign people during the 14 period, but it is 2 weeks of kind of craziness where we don't know who's going in and out. And I think there was a report yesterday that there are over 7,000 athletes across FBS, FCS, Division I, Division II in the portal today, 7,000 athletes. And I believe over 11% of the FBS rosters are currently in the portal. So expect some craziness. John, you're shaking your head. Exactly. It's lunacy, right? It's like that meme where it's like, oh, everything's all right and everything's burning around you. That's kind of how it feels right now. 32% of all college football players are in the portal today. And there will be more. So don't be surprised to see some more roster movement. This is modern day college football. Do not get emotional. Do not get attached. We will sign players that current players will not like, and they would likely leave. We saw it earlier today. UCF is targeting our former quarterback. And what happened this morning? Their current starting quarterback entered the portal, Cam Fancher. That's going to happen, right? We are going to see some of that. And also, we do have another national signing day on February 4th. So we have another month where we can not hire. I guess we can call it hire nowadays. We can sign more commits, high school commits that can come in. And remember, it's all a trickle-down effect. As the P4 and the G5 sign their players, I believe, and I've seen this, and I think when we look at some of the high school recruits that we've gotten, we will have access to higher level, higher quality high school recruits that could probably step in right away on special teams, that can contribute in certain situations. Think of the Chase Regans, the KJ Flows that stepped up last year, right, when they were stepping into a new regime. We will have access to those players. So don't be surprised if Napier brings a handful of guys in here because, as I mentioned, we have 27 kids in the portal right now. We'll probably get some of them back. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. I imagine we're probably talking to some of them, but that's 27 kids plus all the people that graduated. I would not be surprised to see 50 to 60 more players, right, that we have to bring in new players going into the spring. But good news, we're done after that, right? That is the roster. That is the team. We have a year to put them together. So I'm just saying, guys, for all you listeners that have followed us for years, buckle up, try to have fun with it. If you're an ex-person, if you like to follow that stuff, there's going to be a lot of craziness. I would definitely follow us. I would follow Peter Nakos. I would follow the 24/7 transfer portal. They do a great job with covering every little bit of detail. You'll see us post about it. We'll have some fun with some of the portal stuff as we sign people. After I'm looking at you, I think we got some really fun ideas. Enjoy it. Try to have some fun.
All right, guys. Well, another great episode. And my final thought is just thank you again. The support that we saw during the month of December for JMU Sound Off is remarkable. And just want you to all know that the comments, the shares, the likes, the subscriptions, everything you did to help our brand continue to grow so that we can continue to advocate for this program is not going unnoticed and is appreciated by all of us. So we're going to continue to make great content over the weeks to come. We've got some guests lined up. I'm going to do a little bit of teaser because I think this week we're going to have one of our most important interviews we've ever done on this platform. I'm just going to leave it at that. You'll understand when it posts why it is so important. So stay tuned to our social channels this week for something special. And with that, we'll end by thanking our sponsors as we always do. Skyline Financial Partners, Champions Drive Bourbon, Where's Woody, Purple Nation, Shoker and Associates, the Dead Meat Society, Outdoor Kitchen Creations, and Valley Yard Vineyards. And with that, guys, thanks for starting off 2026 with us. And we look forward to future conversations here on JMU Sound Off. And as always, go Dukes.